Yet I pressed my lips against his regardless, and he returned my kiss. In that very house where I once played with dolls and pleaded for bedtime tales, I kissed my father as if he were my beloved. He drew me toward the bed, his hands ripping my clothes apart. I pressed my legs tightly against his waist, yearning for more. He extended his hand toward my pants, gently caressing the area between my thighs with his delicate touch. In that instant, I found myself adrift. My mind drifts, lost in a haze of uncertainty, unsure of my surroundings. The emotions captivated me. It was the pinnacle of my existence. It was impossible to turn away. He struck me with such intensity, as if he had yearned for this moment for an eternity. I am known as Mia. My parents were infertile and had no children. I was adopted from an orphanage, so I was very pampered. I boldly pursue whatever I desire. This tale unfolds the moment I ventured beyond the boundaries with my father. Greetings, dear viewers. It's wonderful to have you back on my channel. If you're joining us for the first time, I encourage you to subscribe, give a thumbs up, and activate notifications to stay updated. Thank you to all my returning subscribers for taking the time to visit once again. Let us embark on this journey. I was raised within the walls of a fortress built from warmth and solace, not the kind adorned with stone towers or golden thrones, but rather a suburban stronghold in Chicago, featuring polished floors, designer furnishings, and a walk-in closet that surpasses the size of most people's bedrooms. My parents, David and Ava, constructed the very foundation of my world. They presented me with the universe on a gleaming platter. Gowns, devices, getaways, anything I desired was effortlessly bestowed upon me. I found myself in a position where nothing needed to be earned. Simply smile, add a touch of pout, and observe as opportunities unfold before you. My parents cherished me deeply, perhaps in excess. It was no different in school. In a twist of fate, my teachers bestowed upon me grades that surpassed my true merit. The boys revered me. The girls looked upon me with envy. I understood the art of crafting an impression, the ability to shift the atmosphere with a mere whisper or a gentle touch. I felt no shame in it. It was a force, and I reveled in its embrace. Yet, within the confines of home, the atmosphere shifted, becoming more perilous. Father had always possessed a striking charm. He possessed that timeless appearance, with tall, powerful arms and a voice that blended the roughness of gravel with the smoothness of velvet. He toiled in the realm of finance, returning home with the unmistakable scent of triumph. In my childhood, he would twirl me around, affectionately referring to me as his girl. I would laugh softly and dissolve into his embrace. Yet, those embraces took on a new quality as I crossed into adulthood at 18. I observed details, the way his gaze held steady as I entered the kitchen, clad only in a shirt. His hands lingered on my shoulder for just a moment too long. He always maintained a sense of propriety in his words, always maintained the boundary. Yet I could sense it, the palpable tension, the intrigue, as if he harbored doubts about the person I would ultimately become. I was not either. Mother remained occupied, perpetually engaged in charity events, yoga sessions, or delightful dinners with friends. Indeed, she held affection for me. Yet I believe she placed her trust in me far too deeply. Perhaps she placed her trust in her father a bit too readily. In any case, the house gradually transformed into our own. Only he and I. It began as a mere whisper. I would stroll through the house clad in snug shorts, overextend oneself while retrieving an object, inquire whether he found me lovely in my new dress. Initially, he would merely chuckle, shake his head, and feign that I was being whimsical. Yet, I caught the glimmer in his gaze. In a fleeting moment, I glided by him in the corridor, sensing the sharp intake of his breath. In that moment, clarity washed over me. He was contemplating it as well. The boundary we were never meant to breach, it had already begun to fade into a haze. As the evening unfolded, I strolled into the living room, clad solely in one of his button-down shirts. He sat on the couch, engrossed in his reading. I pretended it was nothing to worry about. I reached into the fridge for a soda and then collapsed onto the couch beside him. His body seemed to tense up, his gaze avoided mine. "What seems to be the matter?" I inquired while tucking my legs beneath me. "You ought to put something on Mia," he said, his voice laced with curiosity. "Why?" I inclined my head, feigning a sense of innocence. "You've caught a glimpse of me in a swimsuit. That stands apart." I inched nearer. Could it be? He remained silent. She simply rose from her seat and exited the room. That was a tempting one. On the second occasion, I bided my time until my mother had departed for her weekend spa retreat. Every detail was meticulously arranged. The wine chilled to perfection, the music selected to set the mood, and the lights dimmed just right. I invited my father to accompany me for a film. I expressed that I longed for the moments we shared. He perched next to me, taut and deliberate. I chuckled with abandon. I brushed my hand against his knee as I leaned in to refill his glass. Midway through the film, I leaned my head against his shoulder, sensing his body vibrate like a live wire beneath my cheek. "You're intoxicated," he murmured. "No, prime lit." Simply content, he rose from his slumber and made his way to the sanctuary of his bed. Yet another setback. Yet he was beginning to fracture. The third attempt exuded audacity. On a tranquil Sunday morning, Mother was at the church. I was certain that my father would be immersed in a book in the den. As I entered, I was clad solely in delicate lace underwear and a tank top so sheer it could have been a whisper of fabric. I cradled his coffee mug in my hands, leaning forward to offer it to him. "Good morning," I said with a gentle smile. He lifted his gaze and became utterly still. His gaze traveled down my form, pausing at my thighs. He closed his eyes and averted his gaze. "Please, do put on some clothes." "What is the reason behind this?" I playfully provoked. "Are you not captivated by the view before you?" His jaw tightened with resolve. "I am your father." Your response did not address the question posed. I found myself perched upon his lap. He allowed me to continue. Thus commenced the journey. On that day, our lips remained apart, remained untouched beyond that fleeting instant. Yet, a shift occurred. It was there, glimmering in his gaze, a craving that had become impossible to conceal. He exited the room. Yet the silence hung heavy, charged with an electric tension. It transpired 3 days later. Mother had ventured out once more. In the kitchen, my feet met the cool floor, unshod and free, moving gracefully to the rhythm of melodies as I prepare a midnight treat. Father entered the room. Adorned in his robe, hair tousled from slumber. "You ought to be in bed," he remarked. "You ought to as well." He approached with deliberate steps. I remained still. She simply locked eyes with him and held her ground. In that moment, his lips met mine. It was awkwardly executed. Uncertain, yet genuine. Once that line was crossed, there was no turning back. That evening, he led me to the couch in the living room and claimed me as his own. She is not his daughter, his beloved. The following morning, silence enveloped the topic between us. We exchanged glances, a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration coursing between us. I believed it would end at that point, merely a singular, dreadful error. Yet it did not. We were swept away, as if the tide had drawn us beneath the surface. It was a mistake. Contorted, yet we found ourselves unable to halt. And the most disheartening aspect was that I had no desire to. Once you savor the allure of the forbidden, your palate becomes oblivious to all else. Following that initial night with Dad, everything transformed, not on the surface, but within us. A boundary had been breached, and rather than retreating in fear, we moved closer with curiosity. The following morning, I found myself enveloped in his embrace, his breath a gentle whisper against my neck. In that moment, the air was thick with unspoken thoughts, devoid of any clumsy apologies, enveloped instead in a profound silence. A tempest is brewing, not merely drifting away. I returned to my chamber before the dawn broke. Mother remained in the embrace of slumber. As I stood before the mirror, I ran my fingers through my hair and allowed a smile to bloom on my lips. I felt no remorse, not a single flicker. A surge of power coursed through me, exquisite, adored. Men are drawn to that which ignites their sense of vitality. And Father, I awakened emotions in him that had long been dormant, untouched by Mom for years. It began to occur with increasing frequency in the quiet hours of the night when she was absent, or even when she lingered nearby. I would find my way into his room, a clandestine visitor under the cover of darkness. Silence enveloped us. There was no necessity for that. He had already given in. He belonged to me now. And I understood the art of holding on to him. I would don the hues he cherishes most, prepare meals for him during the times when Mother was preoccupied, chuckling at his silly quips, perch on his lap, feigning interest as I direct his gaze to my phone screen. There was a moment when I marked his neck with a hickey. He attempted to mask it with makeup before Mom caught on, but she did. He claimed it was a burn from a curling iron. She placed her trust in him. She had unwavering faith in him, yet the bewilderment was unmistakable in her gaze. Her gaze lingered on him as he erupted in laughter at my jokes. Her gaze was piercing as he offered me a seat, leaving her standing there. She sensed it, the transition. She remained blissfully unaware of the profound depths that lay beneath the surface, nor did we. On a fateful night, I dared to push the boundaries. Mother occupied the upper floor, engaged in an extended conversation on the phone. I nestled onto Dad's lap in the cozy living room, murmuring playful nonsense into his ear. He urged me to cease. He remarked that it was not secure, yet I pressed my lips against his regardless, and he returned my kiss. In that very house where I once played with dolls and pleaded for bedtime stories, I kissed my father as if he were my lover. Upon hearing the familiar sound of Mom's footsteps, I sprang to my feet and vanished into the hallway. He lingered for days, attempting to tame his hair and smooth out his shirt. She entered a moment later, her gaze darting between us as if she could sense the truth lingering in the air, yet lacked the words to articulate it. She remained silent. I just ventured into the kitchen. We came perilously close to being discovered, yet the excitement, it merely intensified our desire for more. At that point, it transcended mere desire. A hidden realm lay before us, a distorted haven that was solely ours. We would gather in the garage, the chamber of garments where fabrics await their transformation, the space he occupies for work. In a moment of mischief, I drew him into the pantry while Mom busied herself with the table setting. Just 5 fleeting minutes. Ostelenkish. A perilous smile. We were entwined in a cycle of dependency, drawing strength from one another. I sensed him descending further into the abyss. His messages grew more audacious. His gazes lingered for an extended time. One fateful day, I stumbled upon a new necklace resting delicately on my bed. Silence prevails, devoid of any note or explanation, simply a token of appreciation. I donned it for dinner. My mother praised it. Father struggled to swallow his wine. A smile graced my lips. Yet soon enough, fissures began to emerge. He started to pose inquiries. Following a night spent in each other's company, he found himself lying in bed, his gaze fixed upon the ceiling above. "What are we embarking on?" he inquired. I merely shrugged. "Relishing one another's company. This feels all wrong, Mia. Cease at once." He was unable to. At times he would gaze at me, a profound longing reflected in his eyes, as if he regretted ever surrendering. Yet I was aware of the truth. The pain I felt was not born of guilt. It was a deep, gnawing hunger. He was captivated. He craved me like a potent elixir, and what of me? I reveled in the power I held. We became negligent, untidy. As I donned his shirt at the breakfast table, I felt the weight of my mother's gaze upon me, her stare lingering for an entire minute. I mentioned it originated from the laundry basket. Her silence spoke volumes, and I could almost see the cogs of her mind whirring away. She began to observe us with greater frequency. I have ceased my frequent excursions beyond the threshold of my home. Discontinue her yoga classes. The weekend retreat has been canceled. Her gaze trailed us as if we were unfamiliar figures donning the visages of her kin. Then arrived the misstep. On that particular Sunday, my father and I had just returned from the store, our laughter still echoing from a light-hearted joke I had shared during the drive. Without a moment's thought, my fingers brushed against his hand, excessively acquainted, excessively delicate, and Mother witnessed it. She remained silent for a moment. She merely observed, and I was aware that she was aware. As the night deepened, my father entered my room. He remained fully clothed. He refrained from making contact with me. He lingered on the edge of my bed, his face a ghostly shade of pale. "She's beginning to harbor doubts," he remarked. I remained silent. This cannot continue indefinitely. I propped myself up. "Do you feel fear?" "Indeed," he murmured softly. I leaned in closer, my fingers lightly grazing his knee, then chose a side. His gaze met mine. The silence that enveloped us deepened. His visage was a battleground, caught in the struggle between the man he once was and the man I had reshaped him into. Yet he remained in my room throughout the night. That was the moment I realized he had made his decision. Perhaps Mom sensed the impending storm. She might have perceived the omens, caught the murmurs, sensed the treachery lingering in the atmosphere. Yet the moment had slipped away, irrevocably lost. We had transcended mere concealment. We found ourselves immersed in it. The stillness that enveloped the room after Mom departed resonated like a thunderous echo in my mind. Silence reigns above, no footsteps to be heard. Silence reigns in the kitchen, devoid of any voice calling out. Silence enveloped the table, the wine glass untouched, its rim free of the customary clink that follows a meal, simply serene, and the truth we were abandoned to contemplate. Father remained silent for days on end. He scarcely touched his food. He glided through the house as if he were a specter, as if the walls had become strangers to him. I certainly did. A sense of liberation washed over me. Her departure did not unsettle me. It validated all that had been suspected, that I had emerged victorious. I had seized what I desired, and in that moment I found myself unopposed. I had always occupied the very heart of this home. At that moment, I had ascended to the throne of my own dominion. Yet, governing a shattered realm soon loses its semblance of triumph. During the initial week, I endeavored to re-establish our familiar cadence. I would don his cherished fragrance, part my robe just a touch more. I brushed my fingers against his shoulder as I walked by. Yet he scarcely cast a glance in my direction. He would linger in the living room for hours, gazing at the old family photos, as if they might spring to life and offer him guidance. "What's got you in such a gloomy mood?" One evening, I inquired, perched across from him, clad solely in a tank top and delicate lace panties. She departed. "Is that not what you desired?" He remained silent. "She had no knowledge of your existence," I went on, "not in the way that I do." At last, he directed his gaze toward me. His eyes held an emptiness. "The issue lies therein." In that moment, words eluded me completely. "I shattered my wife," he confessed, "due to my inability to rein in my impulses. For you pressed on, and I allowed you to continue. Ceasing was not in your desires." "No," he murmured softly. "Yet, I ought to have. A fracture formed within me. Are you feeling remorseful about it now?" I let out a sharp hiss. "Now that she has departed and I remain here?" He averted his gaze. I approached him, my hands gently cupping his face as I held him steady. "This father was your choice. You selected me." "Weakness," he whispered, "and you cherished it." His hands clasped my wrists tightly. "Not difficult, yet resolute." "This isn't love," he declared. "It was never meant to be." My gaze was fixed upon him. What then was it? He withdrew. I find myself at a loss now. Upon waking the following morning, I discovered a suitcase positioned by the door, his filled to the brim, prepared. A wave of panic washed over me. "To what destination do you find yourself heading?" I stood in the doorway, wearing his sweatshirt, my heart racing. "I'm seeking assistance," he remarked. "I have been engaging in conversations with a counselor. I am embarking on a journey to a retreat. I must embark on a journey of self-improvement." "What of my own existence?" He gazed at me, his eyes reflecting a sorrow I had never encountered before. "Mia, you require assistance as well. Beyond what I can offer you, perhaps more than anyone else is capable of." The fury surged just beneath the surface of my skin. "Are you really just going to walk away?" In the aftermath of it all, he spoke with a heavy heart. "I have already lost my wife. I mustn't lose myself either." And in an instant he was gone. With a final click, the door closed, leaving me in solitude, utterly solitary. "Absolutely not, Mother. Absolutely not, Dad." A dwelling steeped in whispers and hidden truths, untouched by the hands of those who feared to unveil its mysteries. Time flowed by. Then came the weeks. I made an attempt to reach him by phone. Silence prevails. I attempted to connect with my mother. Silence prevails. The chill crept into the house. Dust accumulated in the corners. I ceased to adorn myself with fragrance. Ceased the act of brushing my hair. There were mornings when I remained ensconced in the warmth of my sheets, reluctant to face the day. I believed I could manage it. I found that I was not in need of them, yet I did. For all my games and all my power, I remained merely a girl, alone with no one left to share in the play. On a quiet afternoon, I stumbled upon a photograph hidden away in the drawer next to my father's bed. On a warm summer day, the three of us gathered by the tranquil lake. A gentle hand rests upon a sturdy back. I enveloped them both in my embrace. We appeared to be filled with joy, complete. I gazed at it for what felt like an eternity. In that moment, I tore it asunder. I held back my tears. I refrained from shedding tears, yet I sensed a fracture deep within, a silent break that whispered of pain yet refused to mend. Months have passed and the house remains in my possession, yet it no longer carries the warmth of a home, merely a husk, haunted by the echoes of a dreadful event. Mother never returned. Father dispatches postcards from his treatment facility. They are brief. Respectful, remote, he now signs them David. Not father. It has been quite some time since he departed my life. At times, I find myself in the den, the very place where it all began. I glide my fingers over the couch where our connection first ignited. In that place, I first uttered secrets a daughter ought to keep hidden. And I ponder, had I paused, would he have done the same? Yet I find myself recalling that I had no desire to cease, nor did he. That is the reality we must both accept. It is possible to apply a fresh coat of paint over a wall that bears stains, yet the decay below continues to fester. What about this house? It might endure, yet it shall never regain its pristine state. For we have set ablaze a family, and now we find ourselves enveloped in the haze. It was a still day when Mom shattered, excessively silent. The day began just as any other morning would. Sunlight cascades through the windows. Birds chirped outside, blissfully unaware of the decay that festered within our home. As I descended, draped in a satin robe, a soft melody escaped my lips, a tune only I could hear. Realizing that my father was already in the kitchen, brewing a fresh pot of coffee, his gaze lifted as I stepped inside. Gazes swept across me, carrying a familiarity I recognized all too clearly. Half guilt, half desire, yet an unsettling sensation lingered in the air. Mother was absent from her customary seat. The coffee cup remained untouched, devoid of its warm embrace. The air was devoid of her perfume's lingering essence. I did not inquire. I was indifferent. The house seemed to belong to me now. In any case, good morning. I murmured as I glided by my father, allowing my fingertips to glide over his back. He took his time before replying. Subsequently, Mia, this must come to an end. I pause, blink, and turn to him. What is the reason behind this? She is aware of his words, spoken in a hushed tone, or perhaps she is near. A sensation stirs within me. A gentle laugh escapes my lips. Thus, she lacks strength. She remains inactive. He gazed at me as if I were an enigma. A chilling experience. Yet there remains a lingering thought. He remained still as I leaned in to press a gentle kiss against his lips. Yet he returned my kiss. That was the essence of it. He consistently returned my kisses. Unbeknownst to me, just above, my mother had been awake for hours. Unbeknownst to me, she had listened to our conversation the previous night. The gentle creak of the floorboards whispered from beyond her door. Listen to the hushed murmurs, the soft, infectious laughter, a hush that echoed with the weight of treachery. For weeks, the signs had been there, waiting to be noticed. Yet, at this moment, she was aware. She remained upstairs until the clock struck noon. Her visage was ashen, as if all the vibrancy had been siphoned away. Her gaze avoided my own. She made her way to the couch, settling down with a deliberate slowness. She folded her hands gently in her lap. I stood in the doorway, a picture of tranquility. Assured, "Greetings, dear mother. Are you all right?" "Please take a seat," she spoke softly. I cast a fleeting look at my father. He stood motionless in her shadow. The coffee mug quivered gently in his grasp. At this moment, let us turn our attention to Mia. I entered the room with measured steps and took a seat opposite her, with legs elegantly crossed. The rope slipped a bit from my shoulder. Her gaze remained unwavering. "I seek the truth." She spoke, her gaze piercing through me. "Everything." I did not feign confusion. "What is the essence of truth?" I mentioned it merely to gauge the situation. Her lips formed a narrow line. "Do not feign ignorance." "Do you really believe I haven't laid eyes on it? The manner in which your gaze falls upon him, the manner in which he gazes upon you. I have observed the marks upon your linens, the fragrance lingering in my sheets. I am not foolish." Father advanced with purpose. "Ava, silence please." Her voice snapped, trembling with emotion. In that moment, her gaze returned to meet mine with a sudden intensity. "Share with me, Mia." "Are you sharing a bed with your father?" A chill settled in the air. Father let the mug slip from his grasp. It broke into countless pieces on the floor, scattering steaming coffee across the tiles. Silence enveloped the scene, as if time itself had paused. Not a single soul stirred. I inclined my head. "Are you asking me to be untruthful?" She recoiled. That response spoke volumes. The silence lingered, extending into an eternity. Dad settled into the armchair, as if every ounce of vitality had been siphoned away. Mother simply gazed. "And what of me?" I remained unblinking. "How could you possibly?" At last, she breathed her words softly. "He is your father." Negative. I expressed that the voice should be cool. "He is your husband. You seem to have lost the knack for maintaining his intrigue." She struck me with a swift motion. Challenging. My cheek ignited with heat, yet I remained steadfast, refusing to flinch. A smile graced my lips. "Behold," I murmured gently, "the authentic self." Her eyes brimmed with tears. She glanced over at her father. "What is the duration?" Silence enveloped him. "What is the duration?" Her voice pierced the air with a sharp cry. He shielded his visage with his hands, disintegrating like parchment. "Several months." She gasped and stumbled backward as if he had struck her. "I poured my heart and soul into you," she wept. "This family was bestowed upon you by me. This abode, you have brought about its ruin." "It was never my intention," he murmured softly. "Yet, you went ahead and did it regardless." She let out a piercing scream. In her company, her voice trembled. She gazed at us as if we were unfamiliar creatures, monstrous and unrecognizable. Then she let out a melodic laugh, a chilling, fractured laugh. "I ought to contact the authorities," she spoke, her hand brushing away the tears that stained her cheeks. "I ought to bring about your downfall." "You shall not," I spoke with a cool composure. "Your affection for him runs deep." "What about me? You never truly held sway over me, did you?" That shattered her. Silence enveloped her once more. She ascended the stairs, gliding like a specter. An hour later, she descended the stairs, 2 suitcases in tow. Father rose, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. "Ava." She cast a final glance in his direction. "Your decision has been made." At that moment, her gaze met mine. Her eyes held a lifeless gaze. "You are not my daughter." She stepped through the threshold of the front door, and in an instant, she vanished. Silence reigns. Refrain from tossing objects. No last-minute appeals. Only the stillness remained, heavy with the burden of our actions. Father lingered in silence, unmoving, as time stretched around him. "This was not my desire," he uttered at last, as if in conversation with his own thoughts. "Yet you chose not to intervene as well," I murmured. He gazed at me, and in that moment I perceived it. Remorse, regret. A subtle fracture echoes from within, yet, even in that moment, he refrained from asking me to go. Even then, he refrained from declaring it was over. We had obliterated her, and we remained steadfast. Have you ever envisioned yourself in a scenario like this? And I am aware that a multitude of thoughts may be swirling in your mind. How did you respond to that situation? Join this channel, show your support with a like, and activate notifications to uncover more captivating tales like this one.